today are two exciting people who I'm looking forward to talk to. They are Rick and Wendy Walleigh, and they are the authors of From Silicon Valley. Help me out because I don't know the spelling of the town.
Okay.
It's Swaziland.
So it start out with it's Walleigh, just like W-A-L-L-Y, and it's Silicon Valley to Swaziland, which is a country in southern Africa. It's a small country, about 1 million people.
That's so exciting. And I understand that you guys left Silicon Valley after years of work and dedication and got this wild hair, I suppose, and went on. Tell us a little bit about what the book is about. What was your experience?
Well, I can start out. As we got into our 50s, we started thinking about what we wanted to do when we got to the traditional retirement age. And we really wanted to, quote, give back, because we've been fortunate in our lives. We're not rich, but we should be okay financially. And we have been fortunate, so we wanted to do something to give back. And Wendy was actually the first one that took a move in that direction, and she joined Junior Achievement here in Silicon Valley and became the VP of Marketing and Development. And she made a whole lot less money, but she felt like she was doing something with a real purpose. She got to work with kids, she got to teach them about entrepreneurship, and felt that she was benefiting society. So a number of years later, it was my turn. I decided that I wanted to do something similar, but I had no idea what. And so I did a big exploration, and to make a long story short, figured out that I wanted to help poor people get out of poverty. And ultimately, I think that will lead to world peace, which is, it's a long path, but I think that violence and lack of opportunities, economic opportunities, lead to violence and lead to wars, whether you're in the gang wars in the inner cities in the U.S. or whether you're in the Middle East or wherever. And so I did a lot of networking, I did a lot of research, and I came to TechnoServe, whose tagline is Business Solutions to Poverty. And to make a long story short, they have a volunteer program, and we ended up volunteering, and we ended up in Swaziland.
So, Wendy, tell me why this particular town, Swaziland, of all the places you could have gone in Africa, what was the direction of this particular town?
Well, it kind of chose us. We put our names in with TechnoServe to do the volunteering. As Rick said, I was working for Junior Achievement at the time. I had a window that I needed to finish doing a whole bunch of activities in. When we finally told TechnoServe we were ready, we ended up both submitting our resumes to all the country directors in Africa, and the first one to raise her hand was the country director for Swaziland. And I frankly think that my resume might have been a little more appealing because she wanted to start a youth entrepreneurship program. And obviously my connection to Junior Achievement made that a perfect fit. Rick was doing consulting, and so he ended up doing consulting with small businesses and actually mentoring the country director quite a bit. So in essence, Swaziland chose us.
That's pretty cool. So what was it like telling your family? I mean, was the first thing they said is, "Are you going nuts?"
Well, that may have been the second thing, but the first one was, "Where is Swaziland?"
Where is Swaziland? Give us a little geographical class so we know.
Okay, so Swaziland is at the bottom of Africa. If you look at the bottom of Africa, South Africa is there. in the northeast corner and surrounded by South Africa on 3 sides and 1 side on Mozambique is Swaziland. It is a kingdom. It's one of the last 2 kingdoms in Africa. The other is Lesotho, also embedded in South Africa, but in this case, Swaziland is in the northeast corner, and you can drive about 2 hours in any direction and be in another country.
Wow. So that really gave you a lot of opportunities for expansion once you got there.
Oh yeah, we took advantage of that.
I bet. What was it like getting there and finding the contrast of life between where you come from, and, which, by the way, tell us a little about where you are. Is it in California?
Yeah, so go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, so our careers and our life has basically been in Silicon Valley, California, which is about 50 miles south of San Francisco. It's where all the high-tech companies are. We live 5 miles from Apple, 5 miles from Google, maybe 10 miles from Facebook, but they're all around us. And both of us had our careers in high technology. So Swaziland was quite different because it's not filled with a lot of high-tech companies. So on the journey there, Swaziland, unless you're going to Antarctica, Swaziland's about as far as you can go from California and still be on the planet. So you fly to Europe, fly east to Europe, and then you fly south for a long time. And you go to South Africa, to Johannesburg, and then you get on another 1-hour flight to Swaziland. So I think it was about a 36-hour trip for us when we first went there, with 2 overnight legs. And so we're pretty exhausted, and it's about a 9-hour time difference. So you're almost switching night and day. But when we got there, it was surprisingly similar to California from the topographical point of view. There were foothills like we see in California. There was red dirt and black rock, and it reminded us from that perspective a lot of California. On the other hand, it didn't remind us of the San Francisco Bay Area. It reminded us of a small town. And the place we were staying was Baban. That's spelled M-B-A-B-A-N-E. You kind of hum the M and then say Baban. It's kind of like Baban. And that's the capital. It's a city of about 100,000 people. And it looked like a small town in the U.S., except that everybody was African. So that was comforting in one ways, and it was kind of strange in others. So those were our first impressions.
So you get there, and how did you establish contact with? I guess you already had some ambassadors on the other side that knew you were arriving, and were going to put you in touch with some of these companies that you were aiding. How did all that kind of transition?
We were picked up from the airport by a driver, and we were driven to our new home, but we also were driven to the office. We met our colleagues pretty much right away, and we were able to start working with people based on what they told us we needed to work on. Each of us was focused on a different area. I had a colleague that was tasked with, and this was his permanent job, tasked with working with youth and setting up youth entrepreneurship programs. And so I started working with him pretty much right away, and we had to scout out different opportunities, different programs that might fit to start that youth program. And that was my focus for the entire 6 months that I was there. Sometimes we were in the office, sometimes we were meeting people, but it was through my connection with my colleague that is really how I made my progress. For Rick, it was a little bit different, and I'll let Rick talk about how his focus was different?
Yeah, my focus was on consulting to small businesses to either help them get started or to help them grow. And I worked with very different businesses from what you see in Silicon Valley. I had worked with a lot of computer companies, software companies, silicon companies in Silicon Valley. And in Swaziland, I worked with a bakery. I worked with a company that was pressure treating poles for telephone poles. I worked with a piggery, and I worked with a guy that wanted to start up a bottled water company. So very different kind of companies. One of the things you learn when you work with the poor is that about 75% of the world's desperately poor people are smallholder farmers. So if you work with the poor in developing countries, you're going to end up working in agriculture in one aspect or another, whether it's working with the farmers directly or working with the people that take their produce, process it, send it on, etc.
So how was that for you? I mean, working, having been in spaces that are, you know, very office oriented, very professional, and then all of a sudden here you find yourself in a piggery. I mean, how I would imagine it was exciting in a way and obviously rewarding in many others, but certainly a contrast.
Absolutely. And if you've ever been in a piggery, it stinks. It's you can't get away from the odor. You know, the senses adapt pretty quickly to most odors, but if you're in a large piggery, it keeps smelling for a long, long time. But it's fascinating. I just love the terminology, because when little piglets are born, they're suckers, and then after 6 weeks they become weaners, and that's Weaners, not hot dog wieners, but they are weaned, so they become weaners. And then as the males grow older, they become porkers and then baconers, depending on size. And then they go off to the butcher, and then they become wieners, hot dog wieners. But the females, they have this whole thing down to a science. And once again, it's just amazing that I learned all this stuff. With an electrical engineering background, now I know about pigs. And so, but the females, I started to say, have approximately 10 suckers every 6 months for 3 years, and then their litters start going down in size. And so at that point, they go from being sows to being tired sows. And then when they become tired sows, it's time for them to become weaners, that is, hot dog wieners. So the technology, I mean, the terminology is just fantastic. I loved it. And I learned about coffee, and I learned about bananas and stuff I would never imagine that I would know.
So it sounds like it was a very enriching opportunity, not just for you being able to give something of your time, of your talent, but also you got a lot out of it.
Absolutely. We probably got as much as we gave. It was, as Rick said before, I think it was life transforming to see that you could have real impact. One of the things that was exciting for me was helping to establish the youth program before I left in that 6-month period. We traveled to South Africa, looked at different kinds of programs, and I guess no surprise, we ended up starting Junior Achievement of Swaziland, which is still, I'm proud to say, going strong. And the ability to take an idea from cradle to actual implementation was quite satisfying. I would say about a week before we finally departed Swaziland, we actually taught a JA program as a pilot to a group of high school kids. So seeing it become reality was amazingly satisfying.
So you came back and then wrote all about your experience.
Actually, not quite. When we finished up our 6 months in Swaziland, we decided that that was great, but we were ready for more. So Rick talked to our vice president at the time, vice president of Africa, and said, could we do more, and could we do it in another country? So I'll let Rick explain what happened next.
Operation in Uganda. So their senior management ranks up there are pretty thin. You guys can go up and help out. So go up and help out and make those guys successful. And that was about the extent of our job description, and we were headed up to Kenya. We lived in Nairobi for a year, which is a very large city. It's about 4 million people, so it was entirely different from Swaziland. Swaziland has very little traffic, no movie theaters, very few restaurants that are really good, low crime rate, relatively low crime rate. Nairobi was exactly the opposite. Big city, lots of nice restaurants, some movie theaters, people, whereas Baban is 100,000. Nairobi has high traffic, high crime, but it does have a few movie theaters and it has a lot of good restaurants, whereas Baban had very few restaurants, no movie theaters in the whole country of Swaziland, and low crime and no traffic. So this tremendous contrast, still in Africa, but hugely different. We lived in a compound that was surrounded by an 8-foot-high wall with electrified barbed wire on top of it, and a gate with guards at the front. And we were okay to go out and walk around in our neighborhood during the day. It was very safe, but you wouldn't go out at night. If you went out at night, a taxi would come into your compound, drive out, and drop you off in wherever you were going, the compound wherever you were going, whether it's a restaurant or a friend's apartment or what have you. So a hugely different experience. A lot of action, a lot of tension, whereas Baban, Swaziland, was very laid back, relaxed. You really had a heightened sense. All of your senses were heightened when we lived in Nairobi.
So what is it like to operate under that stressful condition? I mean, even
most of the time you just kind of put it behind, in the back of your mind. I mean, once you're in the office, it's no big deal. In the office is very much like being in an office any place. But when you're walking out on the street, a lot of places there aren't sidewalks. You have to be very careful. They have these little mini buses that are called combis in some countries, or micros, or half a second longer than they have to, that they're losing money. So you have to be careful, because these guys are wild. They're cowboys driving all over the road. There's a long line one morning there was a long line of traffic at the stop sign at the end of our street. So the matatu driver just gets in the other lane, facing traffic, and goes around the line of traffic that was waiting at the stop sign. Then that was typical.
It sounds exciting, scary, all at once, almost like a roller coaster. Why would you have wanted to do something like that? I mean, I get it that you have a big heart and you really wanted to share, but something tells me that there's more. Why? What's the why underneath that?
I don't know. I think we just felt that we were fortunate in our lives. And there are a lot of people out there, a billion people out there that live on less than $2 a day. I mean, there are just a lot of people out there that are less fortunate, and we could give back, and we wanted to do that. I mean, it's nice to feel good about yourself. It's nice to feel that you're doing good for others, and actually, people who study this, and the gerontologists and the psychologists find that people that give back and care about other people and help other people actually live longer and are happier than people that just focus on themselves. And so there's benefits, personal benefits to doing this stuff, as well as you feel good about yourself that you're giving to others, being altruistic. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
So is this one of the reasons why you came back and decided, okay, let's put this in paper, publish it, and hope that we can inspire a few others to do the same?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. My first thought was, before going to Africa, I had read 2 books, one called A Year in Provence, and the other was Under the Tuscan Sun. And they were very similar books. One was about a couple going to Provence in France, and the other was a couple going to Italy, Tuscany. And they were both about going to these nice places in Europe, eating good food, fixing up old houses. And they're both good books, but it seemed to me that the lifestyle there was pretty indulgent. And I wanted to write a book about a different story of people. You know, we weren't special people. We didn't have unique backgrounds that trained us to do this. We were just regular people, and we were able to do it. So I thought other people might be inspired by that and think that they could do it too.
I don't know if Wendy's still with us. It sounds like she's having some connection issues, but
Yes, she is.
What on a spiritual level, for instance, what did that experience bring forth for you?
Well, I think it brought forth a lot of things. For us, it was great to connect with people around the world. You know, they're good people wherever you are, and they're good and dedicated people. And it was really nice to connect with them and to experience things with them, see their culture, and treat them as colleagues and friends. We have friends over there now that we've been back to Africa. I think I've been back 5 or 6 times, and Wendy's been back once less than I have. And it's really nice to see our friends who are there, and particularly with Kenya, because we were there for a year, a little less with Swaziland, we really feel an attachment to those areas because we lived there, we were part of society. It wasn't just like being on a vacation. And so
It doesn't sound like a vacation, even though I'm sure you had a little bit of time. You were working
oh
hard.
yeah, we definitely took advantage. I mean, we went on a number of safaris. We took our regular vacations. You know, if you work for a year, you get a few weeks off as vacation. We took our vacations, and that's one of the other messages in the book too, is that you can have fun and adventure while saving the world. You know, you don't have to be Mother Teresa. You don't have to be a martyr or a saint. You can do good stuff and enjoy yourself at the same time. And that's what we did, and hopefully others will get inspired to do the same.
So is your book directed more to the technology community, or just anyone in general who has a desire to change streams in the middle of their life cycle?
It's not necessarily directed at the technology community. We just came from Silicon Valley, so and it's a huge contrast. From Silicon Valley to Swaziland is about the 2 ends of the earth in some respects. But it's really to number one, to people in the later stages of their career, thinking about doing something more socially beneficial, but really to anybody, any place in their career that wants to make a change into the socially beneficial sphere of the workforce.
So to find the book, is it already?
That tells about the book, and it tells about our travels in Africa and elsewhere. Wendy created this originally to keep our friends informed while we were in Africa. It's better than sending out lots of emails. And the book is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and iTunes, etc., all the online bookstores. And the title is From Silicon Valley to Swaziland, How One Couple Found Purpose and Adventure in an Encore Career. So we encourage everybody to get it. And I should mention that all the royalties from the book go to TechnoServe. We don't get anything ourselves, and they'll go to TechnoServe to continue TechnoServe's work in alleviating poverty in developing countries. So we're hoping we sell lots of books and make lots of money for TechnoServe.
Wendy, while you were trying to reconnect with us, I asked Rick, what did this do on a spiritual level for you? What kind of, how did it enrich you to have this particular experience?
I think moving to Africa was life transforming, as I said before, in many different ways. One is that it made us realize how important family and friends are to us because we were so far away, 10,000 miles away. The other was that how important it is to connect with people wherever you are. The people are warm and
let her now talk on my computer, and I'll just step back for a minute. But one other thing that I wanted to mention in terms of what living in Africa brought to our attention is there's a lot more important in the world than the latest high-tech device that has just come out. You know, whether it's the newest app on the iPhone or the newest game, video game, what have you, there's a lot more serious issues going on in the world and a lot more things that you can focus on that you should be focused on and should be aware of. And I think it gave us that greater perspective, bigger picture to contemplate.
Yeah, there's a lot that we take for granted, and particularly our youth, unfortunately, is very involved into, like you say, the latest app, the latest gadget, and has no understanding what the rest of the world goes through just to put a piece of bread on their table. So thank you for that very insightful piece. What else would you like to say while we wait on?
Well, let me get Wendy and let her plug in here, and you can ask her some questions, and then later edit and go back and forth.
Sounds good.
No.
Anyway, what I had asked Rick, let me just ask it so that I can start the screen here.
Correct.
Wendy, I asked Rick a minute ago what was his personal gain from a spiritual level from this experience. So to you, the question now.
Well, I think I said before that it was life transforming as an experience. Being in Africa, just on a basic level, made me feel how important my family and my friends are, and being 10,000 miles away really reinforced that. On the other hand, it also made me feel connected to the people locally. I really, really enjoyed meeting everybody. We became friends with several people in Swaziland and particularly in Nairobi, and we've had some people visit us here. So the connection was very real and very warm. They were delightful and very accepting of us, even though we were mostly old enough to be their parents. Most of the people there were just delightful. And I would say in several different ways it was satisfying, besides on the people level, seeing the impact of our projects. There was one young woman who was part of the Young Women in Enterprise program in Kenya. Her name was Cecilia Katungwa. And Cecilia came from a slum in Nairobi called Mathuru. And the first time I met her, she was presenting at the final competition for this Young Women in Enterprise business plan competition. And they had her present, and then she actually won the grand prize. Wow. She gave a speech. I can't imagine it was anything but her first speech to a live, grand-sized audience. She was amazing. She was articulate. And what was also impressive is that she brought her products to sell. So she was a natural salesperson.
Natural entrepreneur.
Absolutely, absolutely a natural entrepreneur. She picked up all the skills. She was keeping her records clear. She was attracting customers. I went up to her and I started looking at her products, and they were knitted scarves. I ordered scarves, and I said, "Can you tell me when they will be ready?" She said, "I will let you know." She followed up. She told me when they would be ready, and she delivered. She was able to open up and expand her business as a result of winning the prize, and just seeing how she grew. At one point, after I had left, when she was continuing her wonderful business, she ended up meeting the ambassador to Kenya and gave a talk in front of another large audience. So it was truly young women like that who made me feel so proud of even the small part that we had in helping her success. And it gave me great faith that Africa, particularly Kenya, but Africa could eventually succeed and bring itself into the modern age more fully.
It sounds like you were working with a lot of very courageous people.
It was absolutely true. Not everybody was, more adept than Cecilia particularly, but there were some amazing people that we worked with and were helping. I could tell you so many more stories about people who I felt touched my life and left an amazing impression on me. But that's enough.
Well, that's for the readers to find in your book.
And also on our website, we have a series of success stories in our website, and you can read more about those people whose lives we intersected. And the book is a one place to learn about it, and we would be delighted if people bought it so that the work of TechnoServe can continue, and all of our royalties will go towards TechnoServe to do that work.
What do you see yourself doing and Rick in the future in terms of returning for a follow-up on this? Is that anything on the horizon?
I think it was about 4 years ago, I went back to meet some of the people who won the business plan competition in Kenya, and I followed up with them to kind of do a follow-up 2 years later or 1 year later, and that was incredible. I did the same kind of thing in Ghana with the business plan people, and met up with and took interviews with them. So I think that mostly was the work that we did to follow up what we were doing at the time. I also have done some work to help the woman who's in charge of JA of Swaziland, to help her get more fully established, because TechnoServe was able to pull out of running the JA Swaziland program and make it fully independent. So I was helping her to do that and make that transition. So I've done some things long distance, I've done some things on the ground, and my focus now is mostly as a board member of the local junior achievement to help people on a local basis.
And the fact that technology is coming along, I suppose that helps in terms of being in touch and keeping in touch with some of the people that you have established contact with at that time.
Absolutely. I Facebook with Cecilia on a regular basis. I've emailed with her. We've had 3 of our colleagues from Kenya come over and participate in a program here locally to enhance women's skills, and they've come and stayed with us. We've seen them a few times since we were living in Africa. So we do keep in touch, and we've gotten a lot of response when we've sent out a group email to let people know about our book. We are hearing from many of our colleagues in Africa saying how excited they were to hear about our book. In fact, our driver, who was driving us in most places, I've kept in touch with, and he sent this wonderful, encouraging email. So it's been very satisfying just from that perspective.
It sounds wonderful. Sounds like a family away from home.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It truly is.
So what would you like to tell us to conclude in terms of inspiration to others who may like to change gears in the middle of their career and say, okay, let's try another part of the world?
I would say a couple of different things. Think about what your passions are. Think about what satisfies you on a daily basis. And it probably isn't exactly what you're doing now, but think about those passions, what you really can use to connect with people. And go online and look for organizations that are associated with those passions. There are tons and tons of them around women, around youth, around environment, around water. I mean, there's probably a million different nonprofits that you could be associated with. There's also adventure travel kinds of things if you just want to dip your toe in the water. There are adult education trips abroad that you can do in Africa or you can do elsewhere. You can also connect with TechnoServe, and you can become a Volcon or a volunteer consultant for them. So there's a number of ways that people can find out how to make a contribution to the world. I think the most important is be willing to take the risk, to be willing to put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, and know that you will have an amazing, enjoyable, fun experience that you will absolutely remember for your entire life. So it might sound a little scary to get out of that comfort zone, but do it. It's really, really going to change your life.
Great advice. So tell us real quickly the website or websites that people might find your story and your book.
We have a couple of different ways. Our website is walleigh.com, WALLEIGH.com. That is our main website. You can actually go there and download an excerpt for free. So that's one way to connect. We have a Facebook page. That's Facebook/Walleighs, our last name, WALLEIGHS. And our Goodreads page is about to go live. I tweet. My Twitter handle is @WWalleigh. I have a LinkedIn presence. We both have Facebook and LinkedIn presence, so there's lots of ways to connect with us. And we encourage you to go to Amazon and Barnes & Noble and either download the book digitally or order the book in paperback, and we'd be delighted with that to help TechnoServe's business solutions to poverty continue.
Well, it sounds like you're all in and have had a wonderful experience, and I feel sorry we have lost Rick here temporarily.
Well, it seems like it was either him or me. I don't understand.
But hopefully we got enough video. But anyway, I do want to thank you both, and I wish I could have you both at the same time, but I guess that's just not going to work unless Rick wants to squeeze in into the same little space there with you.
Okay, I don't know if we can hear you at the same time. I can share my earbuds with him.
Okay, let's see if maybe we can at least get one frame with the two of you to say goodbye.
Yes, a frame with the two of us to say goodbye. So let's see if he can get down.
Talk about being cozy.
Yeah, and we're in our storage room, so it's quiet.
So Rick, and Wendy, I just want to thank you both for taking the time to meet with me and tell your story to the world. It's awfully exciting. I hope that everybody is equally as enthusiastic as I am about reading your story in more in depth. And what is there any words that you'd like to say as we wish you goodbye?
Yeah, just go do it. Google, as Wendy said, think about what you want to do, what your skills are, where you'd like to work, and Google volunteer, and then whatever you have in mind, and just start exploring opportunities, ideas, etc. You can do it. We're not special. You can do it too.
Well, I beg to differ that you're not special. It takes a very special kind of spirit to go ahead and do that. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for all of your patience.